Looking at Atlanta's most accurate 7-day forecast, we have a pretty dry 4 days ahead of us. In fact, we're going to be seeing those temperatures climbing back into the mid to even upper 80s as we head throughout really Monday into Thursday. Now tomorrow, we're going to start off into the 60s, but notice we climb quickly. In fact, almost to 80 degrees by the noon hour, getting up towards 86 for that afternoon, early evening high. And that's pretty much the same song and dance routine we have for the next several days. Notice our morning temperatures a little warmer as well, so a little bit more humidity is going to start to come into play. Now, meanwhile, the middle of the week, temperatures climbing into those upper 80s for quite a few folks. Looking at 88 in Rome, 87 in Atlanta and Canton, 86 in Eatonton, 83 in Helen, 87 in Athens. Now, more of the same for your Thursday. By the time we get to Friday, some interesting things are going to happen. We're going to have a low off the southeast coast. It's going to be spinning there. And then we're also going to have another front trying to come through. We're going to be stuck in the middle, which is going to give us the chance for some showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder by the time we head into Friday early afternoon, and then continuing on, notice slightly better rain chances as we head into the evening hours. Now, this is not going to be like a push of moisture or anything. These are going to be pop-up showers and storms, but there's going to be the potential for quite a few of them, and it's not just Friday. It's also going to be as we head into Saturday and possibly Sunday as well. It looks like that low wants to cut itself off. And when that happens, it's going to spin there for a while, keep that front from moving through. And much like we saw last week, it's going to keep us in a pretty unsettled weather pattern once we finally get there.